And today we're gonna finish the God willing, we're gonna finish the 13th chapter and hopefully move into the 14th chapter. It says, "Ve'im tisha v'tomar im efo shezeh davar mitzrich u'mechrach lama lo gazu alav chachamim." It says sometimes we have to make extra boundaries that the Torah doesn't mandate specifically. For example, if somebody's alcoholic and he wants to be a wise guy and not use his inner heart and integrity, what is he going to tell you? He's going to tell you that what's the sin? Does it say anywhere in the Torah it's forbidden to get drunk or smoke drugs or weed or act like a crazy person and dance on top of buses? Which of the 613 commandments is that, right? And if the Torah was so lahavdal elfe havdalot, like Islam is forbidden to get drunk, you know that, to drink wine. So if the Torah was so that's that's an argument to be made. If the Torah was so against us overindulging, right, and getting trapped and addicted to physical pleasure, then why doesn't the Torah forbid it? So he answers, "Ki hinei התשובה מובהרת פשוטה, כי לא גזרו חכמים גזרה, אלא אם רוב הציבור יכולים לעבור, ואין רוב הציבור יכולים בה, חסידים, אבל די להם שיהיו צדיקים." So here's a very important concept. And the holy book Tanya talks about it. First of all, the rabbis never enact any rabbinical law unless they know 99% of the Jews could easily keep it, right? Because neither God nor the rabbis, which are God's representatives, in the modern era, because God doesn't speak to us through prophets anymore, are going to overwhelm you, right? Put you in a trap where, I'm sorry, a 10-year-old kid cannot bench press 200 pounds. So if it's overwhelming for us, the rabbis are not going to do it, right? So most people should be able to enjoy, some alcohol. Although some bar mitzvahs, there's more bar than there is mitzvah. But the thing is, the Torah doesn't demand of everybody to be a chassid. You know the difference, my friends, between chassid and tzaddik? Chassid goes above the letter of the law. Right? Tzaddik, he protects and carries out the letter of the law to its maximum. So you have to know something tricky about this book. We're already in the second half of the book. The second half of the book is taking you to the extra credit, right? Let me give you an example. The MESILAT YESHARIM is a ladder that step by step tells you how to become so holy and majestic and godly and angelic that eventually you're going to have, like Rav Chaim Kanievsky, a spark of prophecy or divine inspiration, right? Where you could tell the future and you're in God's inner circle. But the ladder, the middle of the ladder takes you like you were just in Dubai, right? So even if you go to the 100th floor, how many floors was it?
Like 220, I think.
220 floors. So even if you go to the 100th floor, you're going to get a really great view, right? And, that's an eagle eye view of the whole place. But imagine it like that. Imagine that there was no elevator there. Not everybody could necessarily climb to the 220th floor, right? And that's what the Ramchal is trying to say here. He's trying to say the reason why the Torah can, even though it's very dangerous, the Torah is not going to come and say, don't have, for example, kebab and wine every day, right? It's overindulging, and that could lead to, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that could lead to Ben Sora Mora, right? How did the Ben Sora Umora become the rebellious son that gets stoned to death in Parashat Kitetse because he was overindulging, right? But the thing is, some people may need that, for their diet, because the guy's working out and he needs that. You know what I mean? So that's already Chassidut. Ach sheririn asher ba'am hachafetzin lizkot lekravot yitbarach v'zakot b'zchem l'chol shar hamon hanitale ba'am lahem magia lahem mishnat chasidim. He says, you also always have to know, there's that person that is always wants to do extra credit because he is so infatuated and he desires God so much that he doesn't even want to be in the same arena as sin. You understand? So he may, in the eyes of Allah, maybe go a little bit overboard. But his love of God is so strong and unwavering that he doesn't want to be within 1,000 light years of sin. So he's going to do what? PERISHOOT. But again, it's important for all of us to know about this, because even though we're not necessarily Hasidim, which are above the law, but we see how dangerous this is in our society. People that get addicted to different crazy stuff, right? It literally destroys their life. Whether it's gambling, alcohol. Do you know how many thousands of people die or killed by drunk driving? It's exactly what we're learning now. So, although I don't want to give the thing that, this is not practical to every person in every place of his life. It is. But there's different levels. You could take it on different levels. There's somebody like Chacham Netaneli that is like in the Olam Atzilut, right? But what he's trying to say is that the highest levels of that ladder, right, may not be accessible to everybody. That's why the Torah doesn't say blanket out, right? But it does in a way say be holy, kedoshim to you. So the Ramban learns that you have to be careful. You also have to know, our hand, is your pinky the same size as your thumb? Shani, our great grandmother, used to say, just like every child, listen, I have 5 daughters, they should be alive and well, they should be gesund. Each one is a totally different personality. So each Jew is a totally different personality. So the rabbis can't come give, just because somebody, there's certain people, their body's so strong and they have such a high alcohol tolerance level, maybe them having a few cups of alcohol make them learn even more. That's why you can't give a blanket statement. Some people are weak. Their body, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's why this goes back to one of probably the most important lesson I'll teach you from the MESILAT YESHARIM. My Rosh Hashiva Zatzal, Rav Shmuel Yaakov Weinberg, Rosh Hashiva of Ner Yisrael, said, that's why the first words of the most famous words of this book, that are probably my Rebbe, which was a student of the Chazon Ish, Harav Ben David, said, every day after Modani, you have to say these words. Ma chovato ba'olamo. What's my purpose in this world? Harav Ben David, I miss him so much. My dad was so close to him. We just had the video about my dad's life in the Ner Yisrael dinner. You also have to understand that what the MESILAT YESHARIM could have said in general. He said the foundation of our relationship to God is to know your purpose in this world. He doesn't, but he says it in the he doesn't say chovatenu ba'olamenu, because each one of us has a different purpose. Remember, you love that. I taught that to you a few weeks ago. That how do you know what you've been? What's the secret to know why you've been reincarnated? Right? We all been.
Whatever you have the biggest problem.
Right. So it's brought down in the name of the Rizal. Your weakest point, what the sin that you're the most addicted to, and it's like trying to pull teeth not to do it. Right? For some people, it's anger. For some people, it's unfortunately gaiva. Some people, it's sexual sin. I heard some things. I'll tell you after the class. it makes my bones shiver to the core. It makes my soul shiver to the core. How disgusting and despicable people that call themselves modern Orthodox could be. But some people have a unfortunately they have too much testosterone and just sick sexual desires, right? So what is their tikkun? What is their purpose in this world? To do literally, rip their skin off their thing and put the, even if the kind of like they have to like choke themselves, maybe they need to do some really, really bizarre and extra over the top stuff to control their sexual desire. They need to do that because that's what they're here for. So that's the same idea here. You understand? Each one of us has our own mission. So when it comes to this specific thing of overindulgence, what's overindulgence for you may not be for me because my body needs that much, right? It's just a biological thing. Somebody that is very strong, people's bodies are vastly different, have different nourishment requirements. You get what I'm saying? That's why each person, mein Rebbe, Harav Eliezer ben David, Zechut HaYagan Aleinu, used to say, in Farsi we say, Kesi kechod roshenach, chodar roshenach. To thyself be true. You have to know yourself. So you need to know your weak spots, and then accordingly, right, according to your weak spots, be abstinence, right? Put the brakes on. Say, hey, I'm not going down that lane because that lane is going to lead me to get far away from God. But unfortunately, since people are so vastly different, their personalities and temperament and their whole body and biology, so the other guy may go down that lane and that may even bring him closer to God because he needs that. You know what I mean? So he says, you have to use your common sense, right? Like my brother says, common sense isn't too common to more, but you have to listen to your inner soul. You have a conscience, you have a soul, and your soul knows what's appropriate and not, right? If to thyself you're true, then you'll know what you need to say, hey, this is not kosher for me. I'm sorry. This is particularly what I'm trying to tell you guys. Listen, the most fatty and unhealthy food could have an OU on it. Doesn't mean you should eat it. If you have a high blood pressure or, heart problems, right? That's the idea. So another person that's weak, like my father towards the end of his life, his pancreas wasn't working. He needed to gain weight, So don't think everybody needs to lose weight. Our friend, Mr. Schwartz, he needs to gain weight because he. So that's the kind of the idea the Ramchal's trying to say, right? But he says, but he says a beautiful thing. He says that now that we do find people like Rabbi Eliyahu Netaneli, and I urge everybody to go kiss his hand and see his holy radiance every week. That now that you have people that are in a different world and they're totally, totally abstained from even the necessary worldly pleasures, it's a lesson to us that if there's a will, there's a way, right? Never say you can't. Me and my cousin here were talking about my dad, and I urge everybody to, if you want, I'll send you the video about his life. My father, whenever he would give me something, and unfortunately, chatati aviti pashati, I wouldn't do, he said, don't say you can't. You don't want to. You've just been lazy, right? And sometimes it's so refreshing to see people that are able to get to the top of the ladder, right? The MESILAT YESHARIM, they are a living MESILAT YESHARIM. And that's a lesson for us, that we could be the best we could be, So I was giving a class the other week, I don't know if you guys were there, about how a person needs to learn and review it and always be, if they ask you a question in Torah, you should know what you're talking about. And they said, well, who says... Listen, if you give it all you got, then I'm sure God will put you in the highest place in heaven. The question is, are we being lazy? Are we really giving it all we got? Or are we playing games, wasting our life, wasting our time? So that's the same thing here. he says that it's wonderful to see these people that are so in love with God that any other love is nonsense, you know? They're so spiritual, they're so dedicated to Hashem, and they have the Shekhinah with them. You know, certain tzaddikim, you see the Shekhinah on their face. When you're in their place, you know, like my Rebbe, Rav Yaakov Moshe Kalevsky, you saw that it's, you know, that's the whole idea that we Jews, that was one of the greatest fascinating things. The Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yisrael Shem Tov, made of Hasidim. He said, you know, maybe because of your situation, you're a farmer in the middle of the Ukraine or Russia, but at least go to your Rebbe. Go to a person that's totally dedicated to love of God and fear of God and, you know, Torah. Because if you can't get to the top of the ladder yourself, isn't it wonderful to hug somebody that has gotten to the top of the ladder of the MESILAT YESHARIM? And that's why Chazal he says the lulav is like the tzaddikim. You could eat it, make juice out, right? You can make jam out of it, and it smells good. Then you have other Jews that don't have all those. But the main thing is we put everybody together, and these people come and rectify the sins of others. So sometimes you also have to know that certain things are, this is also important because BALIE TESHUVA have to learn this. Some things, I'm sorry, do you know how you break your leg and break your head? If you want to go from the first step of the ladder to the 10th, right? You have to go step by step, right? So definitely, the Arizal says Torah is like water. If you drink too much water at a time, you're going to choke. Same thing. Every Jew has to learn Kabbalah. But first you have to learn all of Gemara, learn all of Poskim, learn all of Shulchan Aruch, right? Learn the basic fundamentals of Torah, which is the Rambam's Yud Gimel Ikrim. Then you go to the highest level. So he says, what's the bad, undesirable type of abstinence, right? Because we Jews are not Buddhists in the end. We have the most magnificent Thanksgiving dinner every Friday night. And we have to thank our mothers and sisters and our grandmothers for that, right? We Jews have the best pleasure on Simchat Torah. And one could summarize all the Jewish holidays as one of the famous comedians said. He said they tried to kill us, they lost, God did miracles, so let's eat, right? Any good Jewish celebration, from a bris to a wedding to a bar mitzvah, has some wonderful, delicious, and luxurious food. So he says, "Asher lo she'enan lokin min ha'olam ha'shen lahem hechrach bo ela shekvar yimnu ma'atzmam gam me'amuchrach." He says, if you are trying to not take what your body physically minimally needs, like for example, let's say you weigh 150 pounds and whatever, you need 1,000 calories a day, right? Or even a better thing. I'll tell you guys a crazy story. One of my Rebbes, one summer I learned with him. He was one of the founding rabbis of the third leg of the Kirov yeshivas, right? There's Eshat Torah or Sameach, and then there's Machon Shlomo. So Rabbi Gershenfeld, he said there was one time a very smart boy. He started going crazy. He started learning, like a month ago, he wasn't from, then he started learning like 18 hours a day. So finally, his mashkiach, Rabbi Gershenfeld, told him, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. He took him into Rav Chaim Kanievsky's father. And he was such a wise guy. You know, some people, they have nuclear proof. It's the worst thing in the world. You should know stubborn people. A lot of the divorce you see left and right, even in the Orthodox community, because both of the parties are stubborn. Stubborn is the worst. Be open. You know, the Gemara says you have to be La'olam Yeh Adam. You have to be able to be flexible in life. So this guy, even after the Stipler talked to him, he started his crazy regime. I'm sorry, a month or two you were sleeping with shiksas and you were out partying every Saturday, Friday and Saturday night. Now you want to learn 18 hours. It's not, You know, you need the ladder is a ladder, right? The MESILAT YESHARIM, we've been learning it almost 2 years, right? It's a very, very subtle. Guess what happened to this guy? He didn't even listen to the advice of the Gadol Ador. The Gadol Ador told him, get 8 hours of sleep. And guess what happened to him? He ended up with mono in the hospital. And for the rest of his life, he was only able to learn a few hours a day. He became permanently damaged because for like almost a year, he was not getting what he physically needed. Wow. So Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, since we were quoting Rav Chaim Shmulevitz before, he said, a real masmid, a real diligent learner, right? In the yeshiva world, the star student is the masmid and the amkin, right? Those are the two different sides of the coin. The person that thinks the deepest and the person that never wastes a second. But Rav Chaim Shmulevitz always used to say the real masmid, the real diligent person, is that he learns 60 minutes out of every hour of Seder, right? You've all been in yeshiva. You have first Seder, second Seder, night Seder. Doesn't mean if you need to go eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you just skip it and you abuse your body, right? Because that's not appropriate. You know what I mean? So he says that is an undesirable. That's anti-Torah PERISHOOT abstinence. Your body needs sleep. Your body needs food, and you're abusing your body. Then your body starts to shut down. Take care of your body so your body could take care of you. You understand? And he says, it says, and also a litmus test for this is, that's why if anybody that doesn't have a Rebbe, a good Rav, listen, I know this, I don't want to brag, but ever since I was 13 years old, I've been teaching Torah. I've been a summer camp counselor. And I've seen this, it makes me cry, because such innocent people that are really good souls, they're neshama tova. But when they just be stubborn, I told you stubborn is the worst. You can use it for good. But there's an element of it where you're not open to the truth and you're in your own bubble. That's the worst stubbornness. You understand? Stubbornness where you just plug your ears and you want to go into your cocoon and you make your virtual reality, which is not in line with the truth. So he says, we have to also understand, if you're doing something that the Gedolim don't approve of, right? Or your Rebbe doesn't approve of. And again, like that other guy that I told you from Rabbi Gershenfeld, you try to be a wise guy, and then you burn yourself out, and now you can't for the rest of your life. So that's wrong. That's wrong. Hashem doesn't want you to do that. You know, that's the Satan making you so frum that you're going to burn out, and for the rest of your life, you're going to go off the derech. And isn't this one of the biggest problems we have with the Balie Tshuva? So he says, even giving tzedakah, here's a very good question. Here's a very good example of it. Let's say there's a rabbi, his daughter needs to get married, right? Or he needs to get married. And he needs to go ask the gabbai, the head of the charity institute, for money for his own wedding, his daughter's wedding. But what does he do? He lets his wife and kids go hungry or doesn't let his children get married because he's too proud. You're a murderer, right? That's not kosher. Be normal. Whenever you have a doubt if the abstinence you're doing is acceptable or not, go to your spiritual doctor. Who's your spiritual doctor? That's supposed to love you like he loves his own children? Your Rebbe. And then, guys, I want to tell you, the Rambam says this so many times in his book. Never be sure that you're always right. The truth, my father, every page of Pirkei Avot, I see him. He was such a wise guy. He had a PhD in economics. Even rabbis came to him for different life advice, But he was always willing to hear the other opinion. He said, maybe I'm wrong, Let's hear your side of the thing. So, God says, keep your soul alive. If you always are fasting, you're a sinner. The Gemara talks about it. He says you have to be, guys, it says love your neighbor as yourself. You have to love who? Yourself. And it says you have to have a good breakfast in the Gemara. Not for your own honor. Not because you're trying to be overindulge and become enveloped and engulfed and swimming in extra indulgence. No, because you need it. If you need it, do it. Because that's the Satan trying to burn you out, right? And the Grazal says this on Pasuk in Mishnah. It says, Eifa be'eifa gam to'avat hashnehem. If you do double of what you're supposed to do, let's say you became a Baal Tshuva and you're supposed to learn 8 hours a day, right? And you learn 16 hours a day. And this is too much for you. You know it's too much for you. That's abomination, right? That's the Satan trying to break you so you'll never learn again in your life, you know? And it's a scary thing. So, Hillel, some people like, for example, a bad type of abstinence is, listen, to go to the spa every day and go to the jacuzzi and go to the beach, be a beach bum is definitely not good. But not to shower every day when it's a normal thing and you smell, that's an undesirable abstinence. And this could lead to Chil Hashem. So he says, whatever you need, do it. Right? Whatever is a necessity, you need to do it and be very serious about that. It's a sin if you don't do what you need to take from the world. If you need 8 hours, take 8 hours. If you need to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, good, to be strong, to learn. If you don't do it, you're a sinner. See? So that's why we need this glorious book, our GPS, the MESILAT, to tell us. Because do you know how many people I know that don't do this and go down the gutter? And they go from learning 18 hours a day to becoming, again, desecrating Shabbat. Wow. I would urge all our friends that are watching to sell this specific class to the BALIE TESHUVA. And it says, he says, this is a very glorious and virtuous truth, this rule he just gave us. He says, use your own common sense, right? The Ramchal could only give us what? The ultimate outline. But each person has to plug in the details into his own life. He says, I can't tell you everything. It's impossible to, in this short, thin book, for him to tell you everything. But once you get the basic principles there, then you could apply it in specific cases. Hashem should help us to always be productive, to always take care of our body. We have to love ourselves. Our body is the palace of our soul, and never to go overboard, because that is very dangerous.
Amen.